Hi, everybody. Welcome to YouTube's Candid Frank Stanisci, and in conjunction with the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also smart TVs 2016 forward. Now joining me is Aaron William Freeland, and as you can tell, Aaron, I'm very excited to be here. Oh, by the way, I got to do some technical stuff here. Hang on. One more. There we go.
Oh, wonderful.
My graphics need assisted lighting. Technology, don't you love it? Anyway, okay, we're here. I don't have any notes whatsoever. My computer said, you know that document you're working on? Go ahead, try and find it. Try and find it. I dare you. I dare you. Double dare you. Well, I don't care. You know why? There's a thing called the internet. And I can find things. It just takes a little while for an old guy like me. So, welcome to the program. We call this program Leaf Talk, not because we turn over a leaf, but we talk about a leaf or two. So, I was joking about 20% of the lineup, and then I said a third of the lineup, and then last night the Leafs played, and they played with a third of their lineup that wasn't on the team 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
What did you think?
Well, to look at the start of all of this, I think we kind of need to go back to Wednesday. Now, that was, when some more of their reinforcements arrived for the first game. And it didn't start well, put it that way. The Leafs ended up dropping the game 5-2 to the Oilers. It was interesting because he had 2 goals and an assist for his 5th consecutive multi-goal game. He became the 5th player in NHL history to have such a run. The other people that did it were, in no particular order, Joe Malone in 1921, Punch Broadbent in 1922, Alex McGillney in 1993, and Mario Lemieux in 1989. So he is the 5th person to do that. It was, like I said, not a good start. They jumped out early and they stayed out early. I was actually surprised that Campbell didn't get the start because it's perfect for a revenge tour game, but Skinner ended up making 26 saves on 28 shots.
I think their faith in Campbell, well, I think it's soup.
It's been shaken, you could say.
It has, and stirred, and I think regurgitated. Confidence is a terrible thing for goaltenders. So, all kidding aside with Campbell, I mean, this is a problem that every goaltender battles. It's why goaltenders, you really can't afford to pay goaltenders a heck of a lot of money. Every time they do, they're all oftentimes more than not. There is a regret that big old contract's wrapped around their neck because, let's face it, goaltenders are, geez, they're good, but not many are good. I mean, the ones that are make the point. If I'm struggling here to make my point, though, that there are so few goaltenders that are consistently good through history, especially nowadays, where offense is, the sticks, the pucks, the speed. The goaltenders a while ago were asked to shrink their equipment, and we're seeing all that. And goaltenders, it is the most challenging position on a hockey team, in my opinion. And goaltenders really need to be not just on their game physically, but mentally as well.
This is very true. The game is 90% mental and the other half is physical, really. And I know it sounds like a bit of a joke, but it really is true. The mental proportion does take up that much of your mind. If you're not in the right headspace when you start a game, it's going to haunt you for the rest of the game. It doesn't really matter. This is why preparation, especially for goalies, is so key. Now, the good news is the following night, they had a back-to-back with travel. After losing 5-2 to the Oilers on Wednesday, they followed that up with a 2-1 victory over Calgary, which was nice. Not going to lie. Calle Jarnkrok got to be the hero, scoring with 2:20 left in the third period. And Joseph Woll got another win with the Leafs. He made 25 saves on 26 shots in their 2-1 victory over Calgary. So that was good to see. There was a bit of a revenge aspect to the game too. Nazem Kadri got a goal. Sorry, it wasn't Nazem Kadri. There was a breakaway early. Sorry, and the defensive warts that I mentioned when we picked up that other fella Gustafson kind of reared its head. He lost the puck at the blue line, and that's a bit
in
of
the
an
snow.
issue.
In the snow, the poor guy.
Yeah,
There's that snow pushed against the edge. His very first opportunity to touch the puck, and he didn't.
Yeah, and Blake Coleman turned that into a beautiful shorthanded breakaway at 2:32. You can't really fault Wall on that.
We were watching that game, and I think I along with many others, felt, here we go again, another Edmonton game, like the night before. And then suddenly, well, wait a minute, not suddenly, immediately is the word I'm looking for. They played really well defensively. Their goaltender, Wall, like his name was, he did a marvelous job of keeping the puck out of the net, on many opportunities that Calgary had, good ones for that matter. And then the Leafs began to play defensive the way they have played in the past.
No, they did actually manage to play shutdown, low event, really boring road hockey, which is exactly the kind of hockey that you want to play, especially when you're on the second half of a back-to-back with travel. Keeping it low event, keeping the score close, most importantly, and managing to pull out the win is important. Now, they do actually have a third game in this road trip. This is part of their 3 and 4. They'll be off to Vancouver on Saturday. That could prove to be interesting. We can talk a little bit about that later. But yeah,
Aaron,
this was you're glad to see. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, finish that up. Then you're going to I'll start you on something else, and then I'm going to go for a little bit to see what's ailing my puppies. I got 3 dogs screaming at the top of their lungs out by the door. I hope everything's okay out there. I want to check.
If nothing's on fire and nobody's bleeding, I'd say they're just being pains in the butt. But yeah, by all means,
which is why I want to cast a couple of eyeballs out there.
Well,
no, I've never seen them. I apologize to the viewers. I've never seen my dogs that antsy. They're totally freaking out, and it's incredible. I mean, I know they miss their mommy all the time when she goes out the door. It's like, oh no, is she ever coming back? So sorry to interrupt this wonderful Leaf talk about hockey, but you know what? It's kind of funny because that's kind of what happened before the game last night. There was a lot of howling. There was a lot of howling in Leafville, and I guess the coach, by his response, in essence, heard the howling and wanted to know what was going on and wanted it to stop. And I tell you, the more he's coaching the Maple Leafs, the more respect I have for him. Some people might suggest that he's a little harsh, but I don't know. I think his harshness, if the post game after Edmonton was harsh, I think it was appropriate. What do you think? I'll be right back.
Oh, I most definitely think it was certainly deserved, Frank. We'll keep rolling here while you step away. The fact of the matter is, after the Edmonton game, having lost 5-2, Sheldon did say that they played a game without purpose and without intelligence. There were some players who basically faded into the woodwork for that particular game. It wasn't a good look for the Maple Leafs in the slightest. Austin Matthews was doing a lot of busy stuff, but not a lot of actual doing of stuff. Now, flip that, go to Calgary 25 hours later, and the Maple Leafs are off to a kick and start. Matthews is doing more. He's not doing too much. He's doing just enough. It was a very, very good contrast. I wasn't disappointed in the slightest. How is she doing?
Well, I don't know. She was very okay. You can love me. It's okay. I'll let you love me. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. I don't know. Well, somebody went out, and so all of a sudden, I'm gonna have to talk to her about going out while I'm doing the show. Yeah. okay, are you a Leaf fan or something? What's going on? What's going on? So tell me, how do you feel about the Maple Leafs? Oh, that's nice. It's nice to feel that way.
Looks
Okay.
like full coverage there, Frank.
Yeah, absolutely. My whole face. It's just like that all the time. All right. No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to make the viewers come second to my puppies, but I'm sorry. They just do. I'm sorry, folks. Accept that as best you can. If there's something wrong with my dogs, they're getting my attention first. And it was crying. There was whimpering and crying, and that worries me. I don't like the whimpering and crying. Okay, so you're knocking my mic cover, sweetie. Yeah, you want to talk? How do you feel about the Leafs? Well, she's very calm about the Leafs. The Leafs aren't bothering her.
Well,
Okay,
that's a good
so
thing.
they're on a road. I heard the last part that they're on the road. Um, this is a team that's starting on the road. There was a lot of talk as well and I agree completely. The experts, many of them said this is good that the Leafs made the road trip was a perfect time. You know, one of the toughest parts of integrating the team is to create some kind of harmony, right? A symbiosis between all of them, discover, how they are together and bond. Part of the problem they had in that game one against Edmonton, I think was the fact that they went out to a concert together, and I think it kind of relaxed them a little too much, and they were. I just don't think their minds were on the game. They definitely played like their minds weren't on the game. And the Calgary game was totally different. And I just don't think that Edmonton's that much better than Calgary. In other words, I don't think the way Edmonton overpowered Toronto and the way Calgary fought them tooth and nail and did a good job of fighting them, I don't think I don't think that was about how much better Edmonton is. I think that's more about how ready Toronto was to play that game against Edmonton.
Yeah, this I think was a little bit more of a head check sort of game. I know that a couple of guys that were at the Springsteen concert with them the night before the Edmonton game actually got traded. So there's that added distraction there of just having spent a little bit of time with the guys as part of a team building exercise, and all of a sudden those people that you consider your friends and your roommates with are gone. So that's definitely an adjustment. I'm glad to see that they've turned it around as quickly as they have. The good news is the games that they were playing against Edmonton and Calgary, those are both teams that are fighting for their playoff lives at this point.
So you were getting a good effort.
Yeah, you're definitely getting a good effort. The game that concerns me now, however, is Vancouver on Saturday. They have an opportunity here to get 4 out of 6 points. They obviously pooched their opportunity to get 6 out of 6 by dropping the first game to Edmonton 5-2. But this is also a good game for the Maple Leafs because it's what we call a trap game. This is one of those games against a team that's lower in the standings that they should technically beat. So I'll be keeping a close eye on that over the weekend just to see how that pans out for them.
I'm looking here, Aaron. Something might have slipped under our radar. Well, it might have slipped under our radar, but it hasn't slipped under my radar because I had to go on the internet. The Leafs made another trade.
Yes, they actually swapped Dryden Hunt for a player from Calgary on the Wranglers, one of their farm teams. This was actually an interesting trade because it brings a gentleman with some size to the Maple Leafs. He's 6'6", 220, which is roughly the same as Pierre Engvall, who they shipped out to the Islanders for a draft pick. So they've replaced size and speed with size and a couple more penalty minutes.
Is there a message being sent to this team?
I'm not sure.
Or the fans? Sometimes, and I apologize to everybody if it sounds like I'm bragging and I really am. I'm sincerely apologizing when it sounds like I'm bragging when I say, well, finally Dubas has heard my calls. He's finally heard my calls after all these years. And you know what? He hasn't stopped listening. I mean, this is another guy, and let's be clear here. It's not just Tampa, right? It's also the Bruins. The Bruins are a team. In fact, both those teams have had the history with the Leafs, as far as I'm concerned, is that they've been taken over. They're constantly being taken over physically. They've been unable to handle the physical nature that Tampa has, that fourth line, right? That fourth line. And Boston, you want me to put you down? I'll put you down. There you go. that fourth line they have has wreaked havoc on the Leafs the last couple of years. And the Bruins, when the Bruins were doing a number on Toronto, it had to do with physical stuff. I mean, we saw the way their captain was manhandled and punched after the whistle. We've seen how Chara, he did the rope-a-dope. Well, he didn't do the rope-a-dope. He actually hit him at the end of a period, no penalty called. I mean, the Leafs are going to have to play that kind of game. Dubas has to put a team together that's physical. I'm just going to open the door for it.
No worries. But I mean, as it stands, the player that they picked up, and I just like to clarify for our viewers, was a player by the name of Radim Zohorna, who plays for the Calgary Wranglers, who played out of the same arena as the Flames do. There was actually some question as to whether or not he'd actually made the team plane in order to take the trip with them to Vancouver, or if he was going to be flying out there to meet them. So Dryden Hunt out, Radim Zohorna in. And actually, Zohorna's scoring metrics are actually slightly better than Dryden Hunt's were for the Marlies. So, in all things considered, sum total, looking at a player who could potentially serve the Leafs better in the long run and replaces some of the prospects that they shipped out.
And also, it is, I think, I don't know, I think this is a lot of Shanahan. I think there's the Shanahan plan. I just don't see Dubas going this far about face on his own. I think what they're saying and what they've realized is what I've realized, and that is that Dubas has his place, but Dubas's plan has, while it's great and while he's a wonderful young hockey mind, he does and did have an Achilles heel, and that Achilles heel was the turning of his back against toughness, of not respecting physical prowess in the playoffs as much as he should have. Because we've seen each series the Leafs have lost under his tutelage, we've seen Austin Matthews dragged around, thrown around like a rag doll. We've seen players get plastered against the boards, and the rest of the Leafs are looking at the guy on the ground going, "You okay? You okay?" And that's a repeated factor as far as I'm concerned. During the season, it doesn't hurt as much, but in the playoffs, it's a reality check. If you're not physical in the playoffs or you can't handle it, you're not going far. I mean, Montreal beat them because they were tougher. Montreal went on because they were tougher. They made it to the Stanley Cup final because of a certain defenseman who's not with the team anymore. And he was one of the main, you didn't want to go in front of the net with him there. And, he used every physical bit of strength that he had left in his career in that one run to the Stanley Cup final that they lost. And it's got to happen. And I applaud this move too. Now, he's got all the tools to figure out the players they need that can score and play the game, right? Play the actual game. But then there's the stuff that, isn't on the score sheet if it isn't on I think that's his weakness, is that if it isn't on the score sheet, if it can't be tabulated, it doesn't fit into the formula. But this is a part of the tabulation now I think that Shanahan's helped him out with, because I just don't see Dubas making this about face again. Like, Aaron, he's in this past 2 weeks, he's brought in more National Hockey League level toughness and others players that play in the National Hockey League than he has the whole time he's been here.
Well, and part of that is getting handcuffed by the contracts that came before. Part of that is troubles of his own doing. To be perfectly honest here, Dubas isn't perfect. He has made mistakes. There are some signings that should not have been made. But he's taken steps to rectify that. And I think based on the fact that he's probably going to be without a contract in the next 4 months or so, he's decided, why not just go for it and just bring in anything and everything that I've always wanted and see what happens.
So. Okay, because we had this conversation, in fairness to you, you've made it clear that he's not exactly a GM of teams that weren't physical. In junior, all his teams had a physical edge to them. So
exactly.
I want to remind folks who are listening to that right now. So here are the Leafs now. They've got their team. They looked gelled in one game. They didn't in the other. But we're talking about the first 2 games. the big issue for them now is, and I guess what was it? 2 o'clock was the trade deadline. The end of the trade deadline. 2 o'clock.
3 Eastern, yeah.
Yeah, right. Um, so so if they didn't get a goaltender, they're going to try and survive with the goaltenders they have. They've got a goaltender who's going to come back, and they're going to try and play him again. If history is worth anything, Aaron, he's going to come at Murray's going to come back, and I give him maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get hurt again, and he will go on LTIR. That's the way I see it, but it won't matter because once the playoffs come, the you know everything just got made. What you could do with your cap and how you could massage it all happened as of today. So they're not going to be able to bring anybody. There is one person they could bring in, which there's talk of. Your feelings on Nyes and the opportunity he has to join the team, and how if he comes before the playoffs, they do not really have cap space right now. They barely do, depending on the contract he signs. But if Murray goes out, no problem.
Yeah, that's the real key here, right? Is where does Matthew Nyes slot into this? And fact of the matter is, his team, the University of Minnesota, right now are looking ready to go for a long run into the playoffs. They finished the season they finished the season relatively well. He finished the season with 20 goals and 17 assists for 37 points. And he's a plus 23 for his team. So, we're looking at the fact that he may not necessarily be available until right before the playoffs start, which also helps out with the cap situation and shrinks the length of his contract. But if he gets into enough games, could potentially burn his first year of eligibility under an ELC.
Well,
so we'll have to see how that works out.
By your definition, if he comes and he makes it, let's say, a couple of games before the season ends, right? Then if the Leafs play a 7-game series, then maybe, yeah, they burn his first, 9 games, I think, that they get to play, right?
Yeah.
But here's the other thing. If the series ends quicker than that and it goes into a second series because the Leafs won, he could still burn it's a contract the Leafs would be more than happy to burn.
Oh, most definitely. With the way that he showed out in university hockey so far this year, as well as his past history with the Tri-City Storm, I think he's one of those players where they'd be happy to have that happen.
Aaron, do you think maybe that's why the Leafs are bringing in a bit of toughness too? Because they know he is a young stud. He is going to be. He should be. I'll say. I shouldn't say he is because I don't know, but I assume that there's a good chance that he could be. When they talk about, the top 4 on the Leafs, he could be the 5th.
Now he's not exactly a small kid either. He's 6'3", 210, but at 20 years old, he is still going to be one of the younger players, and you can't exactly guarantee that some veterans on other teams won't take a run at him. So, having those guys around isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you watch the game against Calgary, the way that Luke Shen finished one of his assignments on Kadri in the corner, I thought was very nice.
The term pasted into the boards fits appropriately.
Now, the good news is I haven't heard anything over the wire about him receiving any supplementary discipline for that, because technically it was a bit of a late hit, but haven't seen anything.
It was against Kadri. So
yeah,
it's not as late might be. The other thing I noticed is that after the whistle, how Leaf players get kind of mauled a little bit, and so all of a sudden, number 2, Luke decides to rough up one of the other players on Calgary, and this is a team that they answer the bell before the bell even gets rung. It took a while for somebody to come and say, "Hey, don't do that." It's like there weren't immediate candidates. And this is what I'm referring to when I say the toughness. Like, you don't have to beat people to a pulp, but the idea that it could happen is a good influence on the opposition. And that's what the Leafs needed till now. They've got it now. The question now is going to be the injection of toughness. Will it allow for the balance of their, possession game? You know what I mean, Aaron? Because the baggage smashers aren't exactly. You could see a couple of the players on the Leafs, the new Leafs, that they get the puck. Especially, I really noticed with McCabe in the back of the net. You could tell by all the old Leaf defensemen how quickly, when they get behind the net, the puck doesn't stay on their stick. It just keeps moving, right? McCabe hung on to it, something we haven't seen in a while. So he's got to get used to the idea that the defense don't hang on to the puck. It's pass, pass, pass. And even if you have to pass it, I know there's a lot of coaches in the past that are spinning in their graves. Even if you pass it into your own slot to one of your players, you can do that as a defenseman on the Toronto Maple Leafs. And he doesn't have that part ingrained yet, but cut him some slack. It's only been a couple of games.
Yeah, eventually all the players will get used to the system again. And this is that time, the last 20 or so games of the season, where you do have to take the time for all of the players that you brought in. And like you've mentioned before, they've turned over a third of their roster. This is really no time to rush it.
In 2 weeks.
Yeah. Quite fantastic, if you ask me.
That's an amazing. Well, let's take a break from Leaf talk and let's talk about some. What should we talk about? Okay, let's talk about the other Canadian teams. Let's talk.
Sure.
Do you mind? We'll talk about the other Canadian teams.
Yeah.
Let's start with you wanted to talk about the Kings and the Habs. The Kings, a team that made a trade, got rid of their goaltender, who got traded again, ended up in Vegas, and will play against LA. What do you think? What do you think of the Habs and their chances? I don't know if you saw the TSN Bedard song.
Oh, they've got that was kind of cringeworthy. I'll be honest with you. I changed the channel almost as soon as it started because I don't need to hear that. I appreciate the attempt at humor. Unfortunately, it wasn't all that good. Velarde and Kopitar have continued. Kopitar is really on a tear as of late. I think he's playing a little bit angry based on the fact that he had to lose a friend to Columbus, and now he's going to have to play against him in Vegas. I'm not sure why it had to happen cross country like that, but I don't think Quick even got on a plane to head over to Columbus in the first place. He probably just drove to Vegas. It's likely that they knew about this beforehand. So, but yeah, I mean, LA has played well. They're going to be the home team basically all of the month of March. So it's important that they win as many games as they possibly can to build up confidence and a bit of a home game winning streak heading into the playoffs.
They got a shot for first?
It's not out of reach. It's not out of question.
All those home games.
Yeah, all those home games and home cooking certainly helps. Yeah. Velarde and Kopitar got goals a minute and 3 seconds apart in the third. Now the Habs, Josh Anderson had a power play goal, and Denis Gurianov also scored for the Habs, and Jake Allen had 30 saves. But at the end of the day, LA came out on top when they needed to. So
good for them.
Yeah.
Speaking of good for them, you and I have talked about the Kane trade to the Rangers would probably make many people, more than us even, that would make the Rangers invincible. But then they didn't know they were going to play Ottawa right away.
This is the funny thing, with the amount of work that Ottawa has done in the past little while, especially with regard to actually improving the team. After defeating Detroit back-to-back, they've now turned around and spoiled Kane's debut by beating them 5-3. Claude Giroux broke the tie early in the third. Former Ranger Derek Brassard got 2, and they ended up winning 5-3. So, Kane had 4 shots on goal, but unfortunately, he wasn't as effective as they'd hoped he'd be. Tarasenko has been proving his worth for the Rangers, but so far, it looks like he came out a little bit flat.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
On the subject of Ottawa, you weren't ready for this, folks. I'm just hijacking poor Aaron's brain here a little bit, but allow me to entertain myself. Could you imagine an NHL team shared between 2 cities known as the Senators, Quebec being one, Ottawa the other?
That really depends. Would you want to be splitting the home games 50-50, I'm guessing? 21 at the Pepsi, Pepsi, and 21 at the Canadian Tire Center?
I think the reason I say that is just I'm just throwing something, see if it sticks against the wall. Make the games more valuable to to the fans of the organization. I think it would help I'm only saying this in the fact that they're trying to sell the team. They've had trouble with attendance. One of the issues that they say it is the fact that the team isn't downtown. They feel the team should be downtown. There's talk of a new arena, new ownership. Do they want a new arena? Is that one of the guarantees they're looking for? Are they looking for the city of Ottawa, the province of Ontario, to help them out and put a new arena in there so that the team can move downtown? Which, well, to my mind, that's the ideas of having teams in the suburbs are over, especially in hockey. Now, I don't know about football and that, but in hockey for sure, the move is always to the downtown area. We see it with Arizona. That they tried the out of town type of thing, and then they ended up going back, to where they belong, I think. And then you have also when you look at the Islanders went to Brooklyn, they went back to Long Island. There's something to be said for being downtown. I'm just saying.
Well, there's two major ways that this can go. There's obviously a myriad of different directions, but either because of the and it's an 82 game season, so who gets the 10 home games and who gets the 11 home games, right? Or who gets the 21 home games? And
tomato, potato.
I know, tomato, but there's going to be that. There could also be fan backlash over the fact that the team's only going to be in Ottawa, where they're named the Ottawa Senators, for half of the season. And why would I bother spending my money on that? They're probably going to charge me full ticket price for the entire season anyways, even if I'm only getting half the tickets, and I'll be damned if I'm driving into Quebec because they don't speak English there. The heck with that. That's one way to look at it. The other is, people are so starved for hockey that they'll flock to it. And honestly, I'd love to see that happen. I would love to see teams and fans flock back to the Senators and pack the joint again.
Yeah, and you know what? In fairness to the organization, they've done a great job in rebuilding the team. And some people might suggest that it's been a slow haul, but I don't think it has been a slow haul. I think they've done a lot of things that make the team really good. Unfortunately, as much as for those of us that follow the teams in the Atlantic Division, which we happen to do, Ottawa's in there, and we talk about how tough it's been for the Leafs the last few years. And imagine trying to make the playoffs. We've witnessed it. It's just, and there is some talk. There was a general manager. We saw him talk, I think, on one of the hockey games, one of the Leaf games. They asked him, "What are you going to talk about at the general managers meetings?" Playoff format.
Yeah, that's always an interesting question.
He said when I came in, there were, I think he said 22 teams or 24 teams and 16 made it. Now there's 32 and 16 make it. Carry on.
I mean, realistically speaking, just personally speaking, I prefer 16. I don't like it. I wasn't a fan of it when 16 out of 21 teams made it in the mid 70s to early 80s. That to me just made it seem too easy. But I can understand the drive for revenue dollars, that sort of thing.
Well, the reward for the fans too. I think I look at it from the perspective of the fans. Their team makes the playoffs. What do you think of the play-in baseball and in basketball?
Personally, I like the idea of a play-in, but a problem is it clutters it. Who's worthy? Who are those teams? And it's more confusing in baseball with the three divisions per conference. That is just a little too mixed up for my taste. I'm glad that hockey has stuck with the 4 divisions so far. But
baseball could make it easy. 8 teams make the playoffs.
You know what? Top to bottom, just do it that way, honestly. And now the other thing is the NHL has also changed to win percentage when it comes to determining the top 8 teams now, as opposed to going by the points in the standings, just based off the fact that, I mean, admittedly it is. It makes it a little bit easier, especially when it comes to, divisions that are literally killers. When you look at the Atlantic and you look at the Metropolitan and you look at the way everything stacks up in the East, winning percentage I think makes a little more sense.
Yeah, is it win percentage or is it point percentage?
Sorry, points percentage.
Yeah, okay. No,
Yeah.
just no. You brought something up I wasn't aware of. I'll tell you, I wasn't aware of, but it's something I've given a lot of thought to, and I'm glad they're doing that. It's about time. I'm also one of those people that doesn't believe in equating a victory in 60, 65, and shots too. If you follow what I'm saying,
Yeah.
there should be a reward for winning a game outright in the regular 60 minutes. I think they should
Oh,
get
I'm
three
with you.
points for that. They should get the 3 point. There should be 3 points up for grabs every game, and then you can also help with the winning percentage, the points percentage, because then it's real easy. Divide by three. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, I'm against awarding 2 points for winning in regulation, winning in overtime, and winning in a shootout. I just don't think. I don't think it's a reflection of it's the difference between winning and losing is quite a bit, but so's there the difference between tying and winning. I don't know.
Yeah. It's I don't know. It's the way that they currently award the points is a little mystifying, but
But it's a
that's
way that they keep things compact, right? Is the way
yeah.
I've heard them explain it, is that they'd rather not give more points, because then what happens is you end up with teams getting the teams that can dominate can get ahead that much faster, right? We're getting 3 points in a game if they. So I understand, and this isn't about making a decision based on I think I'm smarter than them. No, no, no. This is about talking about the reasoning, and I don't think there's anything wrong with having an open discussion. And sometimes under Bettman, you're not allowed to have a conversation. Just do what I say and be quiet. And I just think doing what I say, be quiet, doesn't work. If we've learned anything over these past few years of issues that go on in the National Hockey League and in other organizations, being quiet and shut up doesn't cut it. It's not the way it should work. Openness and open conversation needs to be a part of the calculation.
Now, I would like to say though that if they did base 3 points for wins, Boston would be sitting at 144 points. And
Right.
the last place team in the league, Columbus, would be sitting at 60 points, as opposed to where they're currently sitting, which is 101 and 46.
Which speaks to
So,
what I was getting at.
yeah, it opens up too much of a gap, and it seems like it could be too
Just
insurmountable for
holds
some
everybody
teams.
together, right? Keeps
Yeah,
them bunched up. Which again, if you look at it from the fan perspective, absolutely. I mean, you don't want your bad team to look any worse than it is already, right? So, there's a few things they have to do. Um, about the Leafs, and they've done a great job. But the Sens, to me, they're the team of the future. They're going to be, and it might be this year. I mean, do you really want to play the Ottawa Senators, who weren't in the playoffs a few short weeks ago, and they make it to the playoffs in this short time, along with the player that every team wanted, the most wanted player, and Chikrin on their defense? They've got a pretty good defense now. They really do, and we do know that they've got a pretty good offense as well. If their goaltending holds up, Ottawa makes the playoffs. I'm not sure I want to be a team that plays them,
no, honestly, they quite frankly they almost scare me. There's one of those teams that would be
because they're not
low key
supposed to
sneaky
win.
good. Yeah,
Because they're
the,
not supposed to.
there's literally no pressure on them to win right now.
Absolutely. Well, we saw the Oilers tear the Leafs apart. The Leafs looked terrible against them. The big guy looked great. The greatest player in the world is still proving that he's the greatest player in the world. And now, there's no question now. On that team, it was 1A, right? What used to be Draisaitl and McDavid. It's now McDavid. And in the league, I don't think there's a single player that can hold a candle to McDavid, especially this year.
Yeah. And I mean, Nugent Hopkins has been on fire lately too, but even he doesn't hold a candle to him. And to make matters worse, they just acquired Bugstad and Camden Ede from the Arizona Coyotes for a third-round pick and Michael Kesselring. So they're trying to make themselves a little bit deeper, and certainly picking up Bugstad doesn't hurt.
Yeah, the draft this year, we heard that it was a deep draft this year, but nothing's deeper than the first overall pick. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting that we might not hear about it because nobody will take anybody up on it. But whoever gets the first overall, the first overall pick, they're going to have a heaping helping full of draft picks and opportunities to pick up players and draft picks to give up that first overall pick. Not that they'll do it, Aaron, but I bet you if there was a stat saying, what's the most ever offered to take the first, to give away your first overall draft pick, I would suggest and think that this would be the year where it would shatter the records.
No, this is definitely one of those where people would pay premium price. There we go. For a shot of Connor Bedard.
Easy for you to say.
Right? Exactly. Too many P's.
Let's talk about the Canucks. This is a team that if they continue on the pattern that they've been going on, and if they play a little bit worse, they'll have a long distance chance, but I'd love to see him in a Canuck uniform, Bedard.
You know what? It wouldn't be remiss, and they've certainly offloaded and sold enough talent to make sure that they are accidentally bad on purpose by design. So they've dropped another game to the Wild. Kaprizov got 2 as the Minnesota Wild beat the Canucks 2-1. He got his 39th goal of the season against them, and as Rick Tocchet said, and I think he's part of that whole accidentally bad, not on purpose, oops, my sorry trend that they've been doing lately. Add in the fact that they've fire sailed a whole bunch of players as well. That adds to the fact that they're seriously going for Bedard, but at least managing to make it look like they're trying to be marginally competent.
Absolutely. Let's move over to the news. Baseball. Let's talk about baseball. You've got here spring training's underway. What can you tell me about that? What don't I know that I need to know other than the Jays are doing okay?
Well, Vladimir Guerrero was pulled from today's game with knee discomfort after the first inning. He scored and managed to advance to second, but when the second inning started, he was off the bench. That is one of the little happenings that's happened. But one of the major complaints about baseball, they're actually working to address it this year. Most Major League Baseball games so far are averaging 2 hours and 37 minutes, which is the fastest that games have been played since 1979. So just to give you an impression of how long it's been and how bloated run times have been, 2 hours and 37 minutes is now the pace of play. This is 29 minutes shorter than last year's average game time of 3 hours and 6 minutes, which, believe it or not, was actually 5 minutes better than 2021's record time of 3 hours and 11 minutes. So they are taking steps to improve that. Part of what goes along with that is what's called a pitch clock.
Yeah, here we go.
So, yes.
Did you hear what happened yesterday? Did you hear what happened yesterday? Yankee pitcher struck a guy out in 20 seconds.
It was absolutely fantastic. Now, these are the spring training game actually ended in a tie. This is what happens occasionally because it's spring training. They don't play the extra innings. But basically, the batter has to be into the batter's box and settled in and ready to go with 8 seconds left on the pitch clock. If not, it's an automatic strike. If the pitcher doesn't get their pitch off in either 15 or 20 seconds, depending on if there's the bases are empty or if there's a runner on base or not, then that is an automatic ball. The other rule that they brought in is if a pitcher tries to go to the bases 3 times and does not succeed in getting the runner out, it's an automatic balk. The batter advances to first base. They're trying to discourage multiple pickoff attempts. But yeah, so one of the batters was up and wasn't set and ready to go. The clock ticked past 8 seconds and he was out. And the game ended in a tie.
Well, hey, listen. Every sport has a clock. The clock they have to do something in a time frame. And in hockey, not so much. They have a clock for a penalty, like other, they do that. Um, the thing is, you've got basketball with the shot clock. You've got football with the to get the play going, right. The quarterback has the time clock to make sure that he that starts the play. It's only a good idea, and what it does, and what I like that it does a little bit that I've seen, is it really stops the boring, "Oh, I don't know," it's just all the boring stuff, the stuff that batters do, the stuff that pitchers do, and we've seen, and I think what pushed it over the edge was the batters that take their time to anger and frustrate the pitcher, and then the pitcher decides to touch the rubber, put on the stick 'em, this is a great idea. What this does is it says, we're playing. Let's get the game going. And more importantly, Aaron, it's not just the fans, it's the TV networks as well. Because the TV networks watch, there's going to be, like with baseball, there's the automatic timeout, right? There's the automatic timeout each time a half inning ends, right?
Yep.
So they can go to commercials every time there. And if they can shrink that middle part where the pitching and that, it's best for business too. And they can fit it into a 3-hour broadcast, no problemo.
Now, the other thing to note as well is for local games, for local television, inning breaks are now on a strict time limit as well. Local TV is 2 minutes and 15 seconds between the end of one inning and the start of the next. For nationally broadcast games, it's 2 minutes and 40 seconds. And for postseason games, it's 3 minutes and 10 seconds.
Well, so the same reason why I pay so much money for Super Bowl ads.
Exactly. They're trying to fit more in. So right. Now the other good thing is the people that are working these time clocks are not hired by the teams. They will be hired by MLB to work at the ballparks so that there is no impression of impropriety or a home field advantage, as it were.
It's not like, is it a hit or an error, right?
Exactly.
Same thing, right? Just in that situation. So now what you've got is on the level of an umpire, just that they do that stadium all the time. Yeah. Those are great rules. Baseball really needed to do something because of all the sports. It's the game that can last for a very, very long time. And everything they've done the past few years, extra innings with a man on second, all that stuff. What they've done is they've listened to the fans and to the broadcasters. They need to do something with the length of the game. It doesn't enhance the excitement. I know the purists try to say it does, but it doesn't. It really doesn't. And once this goes on for a little while, even they will sit there and go, I mean, I can't imagine anybody saying, I just don't understand. I used to love sitting in the stadium at 1 a.m. I don't understand the problem.
Well, the other thing to note here, too, is by speeding up the pace of play, it makes it easier for people coming in from out of town to make trains if they need to. I'm just saying.
I don't know if I know anybody that needs to take a train to a game. I mean, I hear you. We hear you. You out of towners. Hey, listen, I can't take a train. I gotta drive, and there's nothing I'd like more than to get a half hour, 40-minute start, as opposed to doing it 45 minutes later, which is, again, back to the point where it helps the fans, it helps the media, and I think it helps the game a lot, and it keeps it exciting. There's nothing wrong with calling it the pastime, but they need to also not just pastime. They need to make time efficient, and that's what they're doing, and good for them.
Exactly.
All right, so we talked about that. Let's talk a little bit. Let's see how much time we got here. Oh, we got
about a minute left.
Okay, yeah. Tell me what you want to talk about in the minute you got left. You got the last word.
Well, I did just want to mention, actually, that Darrell Walker has re-signed with the Riders, so that'll be interesting to see. And Andrew Harris has re-signed with the Toronto Argonauts. I was very happy to hear about that. There was a report that surfaced right before free agency began on Valentine's Day, and despite missing 10 games due to a torn pec last year, Harris made it back in time for the playoffs, and at 35, he's hoping that they can run it back this year for a repeat.
Looking for his 5th Grey Cup.
Yes, sir.
That's Hall of Fame numbers in anybody's book. Aaron, thanks for doing this.
Hey, thanks for having me, Frank.
He's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live, seen live on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be seen on the Candid Frank Stanisci YouTube channel, along with all the other shows, and of course on the Spanglish World Radio Network for Leaf Talk, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer. Please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody.